Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us today. And today I have a pretty cool guest that I'm going to introduce to you all. But before I do that, let me tell you a little bit about Sagionic and what the purpose of this program is. The word Sagionic means movement by movement in time. And if we think of history, it is through movements that great things are accomplished. The word Sagionic, it means movement by movement. But if we take the word Sagion all by itself, it means carriers of wisdom. So the whole purpose of our program is how do we bring on set, disciplined business mindsets. Those who have decided, no, I'm just not going to live flimsy flopsicle in my life. I'm going to live my life with purpose. So not necessarily business owners. Say, for instance, my husband. My husband's been with the same company for 31 years. In that industry for 31 years. Now, you don't stay in an industry like that with a company for 25 years unless you're like showing up on time and da-da-da-da-da. So our goal is, how do we take the wisdom insight that is inside of someone? How do we give them an opportunity to share that would potentially spark interest in somebody else to want to go and be part of that? Whether it be an organization, a vocation, or let's say a different calling. So today, my guest is Mr. Patrick Alexander, and I got to meet him a couple years back. We actually had a closed party at our house one time. We like parties at our house. And we had a party, and I got to meet him, and then it wasn't his lovely bride, but now it's his lovely bride. And so Patrick, today's program of Sagionic 1027 is all about you and what you would like to share with our viewers. So take it away, Patrick.
As you said, my name is Patrick Alexander, and my purpose and goal in life is to change the way people look at reentry services when it comes to people that have been incarcerated, been in drug treatment, or people that have even been homeless. Because what I've come to find out is we take away the human aspect of it, and we get stuck on all this check the box stuff, and we wonder why it doesn't work. And we wonder why some people don't continue to stay with certain programs, or why some people go back to the same part of what they've been used to, because they get treated like a human. There, they feel like they belong, like somebody cares about them. And I've come to this knowledge and understanding of because about my return back to society after I got out of prison. I've got to see that people didn't really give a whole lot of care about me. They had some boxes that they had to check, and they had to make sure that you met them. If you didn't meet them, we couldn't help you. It's like, but I still need help. And then when you did check out the boxes, they just make sure you did that, and they took away the whole human aspect of it. It was like they just didn't care about it. And then I seen it happen over and over again to more people and all that. Then I looked at myself one day in the mirror. I said that I can either keep complaining about it or I could do something about it. And so that's when I decided to start being the help that I needed. Instead of waiting for somebody to help, I was the help that I needed, that I've wanted. And so then that's what I've been starting to do ever since then.
Okay, wait. Let's pause.
A union.
Let's pause for 1 second, because this is good. This is really, really good. It's like we can, there's a terminology, especially in the United States, it's called couch potatoes, right? We could sit on the TV. I'll use my phone. I want to use something else. I'm going to use a whiteout tape thing. And we could sit there and click it, and we can yell. Or we could put down the remote. And where are my feet going to take me to make a difference? Where can my voice be the difference? So can you like when you, before you take us like in the straight direction on the certain set of tracks that you went on, can you maybe there was an advertisement over here in your mind. Well, maybe you should do this. And maybe there was an advertisement over here. Maybe you should do this. Can you tell us how you tore down those advertisements and said, no, I'm going this way? And you don't have to tell us what the advertisements were.
How I tore down those advertisements was I understood I had to take the time myself and explain to people, like, look, I am still a human. I still got feelings. I still cry. I still get hurt. All that because they didn't look at that. They looked at it as I just came from a place where I was angry and hard. And I said, just because I came from there, I still have a softer side of myself that I would like to explore. And so I had to take the time myself to start telling the people that. Not only did I have to start telling them that, I had to show them. And for them to get that understanding all over again. So that was the advertisement that I had to really tear down. And it was a lot harder than I expected. Because a lot of people have been misused when it comes to dealing with people getting out of reentry, as they like to call it.
Okay.
You know, and some people have misused it. And that one person or the few people that have misused it messed it off for the people that really do need it. And so now they didn't take the time really to listen to anybody. It's like, if you didn't meet the criteria or check the box, let's move on. Let's find the next person that is. And I used to have to say, no, I need you to sit down. I need you to listen to me. Don't worry about if I do check the box or if I don't check the box, but just listen to what I got to say. Then I spend a lot of times yelling at you to hear me. You know, and it was like, come on, what? And it took about a couple years for them to finally start to hear me, because then when they started seeing me doing it with other people and they started seeing the results of it, that's when they understood, oh, okay, you do have to treat these people like they are loved and cared for and sit down and just listen to them. So once they got that understanding of it, they
now let's pause there for a second. Let's pause there for a second, because this is good. Now we're gonna take out the hors d'oeuvres. Okay, so in taking out the hors d'oeuvres here, right? Had you not hit that brick wall that you had to knock down and come over, here's a question, could you have potentially only moved forward for self? But because you were kept hitting up against it, hipping up against it, were you in essence strengthening your muscles to be able to carry others?
I didn't know that at the time, but yes. I was, I didn't understand what God was doing.
Okay. So now go back from that angle.
I didn't understand what God was doing.
Yeah, but go back and revisit how that actually strengthened you to be able to help others.
Yeah, because he showed me, he said I had to tear this, because I thought I was just run through and tear down the brick wall. And he says, no, you have to take this brick wall down brick by brick. And a part of doing that, and I was like, okay, how do I start it? He says, okay, I had to start from the top of the brick wall. First, I had to climb up that brick wall, right? And then when I got to the top of it, I thought, okay, now I can just jump over and move on. And God said, no, now it's time to start tearing down this brick wall. Tear down one brick at a time, one brick at a time. And that's how he was strengthening me. And as I was tearing down that one brick at a time and going through and getting some stuff done, and then next, he says, now look, there's another guy climbing up this brick wall. You got to grab him. And God knows I'm stubborn. I said, man, do I have to? But I went down there and I grabbed him and I pulled him up and I said, okay, I've already tore down this brick, and I had to show them how I tore down this brick. And I said, now this is the blueprint of it, but you have to make this your own, because this worked for me. I got Patrick results. And now if you want your results, you have to do what worked for you. And so once they got through that brick that I've already tore down, Now they tear down, so now I get to tear down another brick. Then it's like you're bringing this person along with you. Then he added on another person. And each brick that God had me tear down and get the understanding of it and learn the wisdom from it, he just threw another person on. Sometimes it'd be two people on, but he would just kept doing that. One more brick tore down, get the wisdom of it. Here comes some more people. And I was like, God, I don't. And then I told him, I said, I didn't feel like I was the right person for it. But then he showed me, like, you're already doing it. It was just something that was I naturally did without even thinking about it. Even though I would tell God I can't do this, or I would tell God I don't want to do this. Then next thing you know, I'm already doing it while I'm telling them I don't want to do it. I'm already doing it, and I'm helping these people come along right along with me. So, you know, and I understood not everybody was going to stay on the path. And I would tell everybody, you cannot do it the same way I'm doing it, because I'm going after my results. Right.
That's really, you know,
it just
pause for a second. That's really wise, Patrick. That is so wise, because a lot of times people would be under the mindset of, you got to do it just like this, A, B, C, and D. But instead, in actuality, you were calling others, I can bring you here, but then you're going to have to decide to have a leadership mindset to get yourself this direction. That's wise, because haven't you heard the terminology like servant leaders, right? So you served them to help make them leaders themselves.
Yes.
That is so wise.
The one they used to always, I used to always hear, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And at first I would take them to the water, and I'm dunking their head in the water like, no, you better drink this water. You know, and it's like, when I was drowning them, instead of they were drinking the water, I'm drowning them. Then I had to understand, like, no, I'm drowning in them. So I had to step back and say, okay, here's the path to the water.
Okay.
You know, and making them go through that. So once they got to where they needed to go, they understood it. They enjoyed it. They appreciated it more. And it was like, okay, now, and I said, now you see the benefits of you putting in that hard work and time instead of me doing it. Now you understand why, and you appreciate it. So yeah, it was one of those things.
Good.
And then but I walked. But I said, if you did feel like you owe me something, the way you pay it back is you got to help somebody else out. And, you know, and that's how I've been dealing with it ever since.
You know what that's
since
like?
I decided to.
No, first I gotta interject for a second. Two parts. One is when you were talking about the bricks, right? That you were up here and then you had to take a brick down, right? I didn't see the brick drop this side on the wall. I saw the brick actually go like this, go on the other side of the wall. And the more that got knocked down, I saw that you had actually created a higher pathway. Yep. So it's not like knocked down and, you know, you got over the wall and then you went bam all the way down. But each brick that you helped somebody else up, the path was higher. The path was higher. The path was higher.
Yeah.
The path was higher. You know? Okay, so then through this process, then what was the next, like, oh, are you kidding me? After all of this work and now I face this?
Yeah. And
what was that special next thing?
The biggest thing was for me to leave the union as a union journeyman carpenter, making a great living, to taking a, like, I'll say about an 85% pay cut to go and help out, to go and really get into that field and get into it more, working with nonprofit organizations and stuff like that, to really get into it. And it's just like, oh, this how much money I'm finna start making. It was like, oh, I can't really do as much as I normally would do, but then it was like, and I wrestled with God about that. And then that's when the coronavirus hit. Right. So I was like, okay, but I was still able to work construction throughout that whole time. But then at the same time, God was allowing me to do some training because now it was virtual. Because everything went virtual. So I was able to work and do virtual training and get all this training and stuff. And then once I got the training, I was like, I still want to do construction because I was like, this is great money. I was like, why would I leave the money? Why would I leave the money? And God kept putting it on my heart. Like, as long as you keep chasing that money, I will never be happy. I will never understand what my path God has called for me in my life. Right. So when I finally decided, I said, okay, I said, God, I'm trusting in you. Step back. And I remember my first job I had working at a nonprofit organization. They paid me $15 an hour.
Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
I went from
it is what it is. It's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah, I went from making $44.50 an hour to $15 an hour, working the same amount of time. I was still putting in 40 hours a week, and the job I had there, then we didn't have many employees. So I'm putting in overtime like I did before construction. And it was like, when I'm getting paid every 2 weeks and the paycheck I was getting every 2 weeks didn't even equivalent the check I was getting once a week. I was like, and there was some hard times, and I was just praying to God, like, is this? But I felt fulfilled. I felt like, okay, this is what I am called to do. And then I had to come with that conclusion. I said, look, long as I do what God has called me to do, he's going to take care of it. And he's been doing it ever since. Because after I got that job for like $15 an hour, and I worked that job for like a month, and then I got the job that I wanted. Right. And I'm still not making, I started making more than 15. I'm in the mid 20s, and I was like, it's still not making what I was used to making during construction, but I feel more fulfilled. And it's nice when you see people that you helped get their life back on track. And they say, man, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And I always tell them, you did the work. I just showed you how to get here, and you did the work. And so now, it feels like this is what, now I understand what God has called me to do. Now I understand why he had me tear down those bricks. And believe me, I want to throw them on the other side because I thought that's how I was supposed to do. And he was like, no, you're tearing down this brick wall to make this path easier for others that's going to come behind you.
It's what I saw. It's the higher level. It's a higher. It's like I don't want to use the terminology, but I'm going to take your terminology, reentry, right? It's that higher pathway on the other side. But if we really think about it, okay, when you were in your mother's womb, did somebody ask you what kind of an environment you wanted to grow up in? And did somebody ask you that?
No.
Yeah, because I wasn't asked that either.
No.
And I grew up in the thicket of the hood up in Seattle. Like, we went to the food bank 5 days a week in order to feed the family, right? Nobody asked me what kind of family I wanted to grow up in, but I had to come to my deciding day. Where do I want to go? What do I want to be out here? And that's what you did. Yeah. And this is what you're teaching. And I just can't even, it must be beautiful to see the lives that are being changed.
It is. And
even helping.
When you
go ahead.
When you see them, and when you see the new person, next they've combed their hair, they brushed their teeth, they've got on clean clothes. It's like a whole new person, and you don't even recognize them, right? And I was like, this is a person I knew you'd always to be. And they would always tell me, I told you I had it in me. I just needed that little push. And it's just nice to see that sometimes I've walked past a couple people I didn't even recognize, and then they'll call my name, and I will look at them, and we would talk, and I'd be like, I know this person from somewhere, but from where? And it was a 100% total transformation. Like where did this? Because there's this one dude, he had long scraggly hair and mats. He stunk. It was dirty, long bushy beard, everything. And I work in downtown Portland, and I walked past him. And he goes, "Oh, so you don't even know me anymore? You're not going to speak to me? That's how we are now?" And I stopped and I looked at him. This was an older white man dressed up like he was in corporate America. That's what he looked like, corporate America.
Okay.
And I'm looking at him. I'm like, I'm not trying to be rude to you. I said, "Man, I don't know you." And I was like, "Do I know you from the past?" And we're talking. Then he told me his name, and it just blew my mind. I had to take a picture with him. I'm like, "Hold on. Let me take this picture with you," because I needed to. I couldn't believe it. I like how much he changed. And he was like, "I got my old job back." I was like, "Your old job back?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I was accountant for years."
Wow.
But he had a drinking problem, and it took him so far off the path. And I was like, man, you just never know who the people are that you run into in their story.
That's right.
Of something happened in their life where it just hit them so hard where they couldn't overcome it. And they just needed help finding the way back. And so that's what I understood God has called me to do, helping people find their way back. We call it re-entry because that's the cute word they like to use, but it's really helping them find their way back to where God has called them to be.
Yeah,
and I understand that's my purpose.
It kind of I wish I had it right here in my possession, and I'm going to write it so that I can keep it here with my books. There is a book. It's called Made for Eden. Made, F-O-R, Eden, E-D-E-N. And to hear you say, the thing about it is nobody signs up for what womb they're going to be born out of, right? Whether they stay in that womb chamber's atmosphere, or, some kids are adopted out or whatever, right? Nobody picks, nobody signs the little boxes that says, okay, Sister Shawn would say, I want to be born in this kind of home. I want to sing in the choir from the day of my birth. I want to go to Sunday school every day, and da-da-da-da. I didn't get those options, right? So whether it be a re-entry program or a restart program or a start over program, wouldn't it all just be one and of the same for people? Because don't you have to retrain the mind? So can you talk a little bit about the mindset, how the mindset has to change?
The biggest thing is I would do for that, the mindset of the change is I would have conversations with them about stuff that they went through in their life, and I would break it down. I'd be like, let's sit down and talk. And I would break it down, and I would tell them, so you used to deal with it like this. And they say, yeah. I said, okay, now this is how we're going to start dealing with it. Because I can't tell them don't do it again and not give a solution. So I always make sure I have a solution for them and say, now we're going to walk through it. And I know the first couple of times they might stumble. So I walk with them through this solution and say, okay, you had this situation happen. I tell them, as soon as it happens, you have to call me so we could process it right then and there and walk through it so you don't make a mistake. And we walk through it. Then a couple of days later, I meet up with them and say, hey, okay, now it's been a few days. Let's go back and revisit this. So we need to learn all we can from it so you'll not walk through that again. So if it does happen, you know how to deal with it appropriately and not lose what you have created, not lose that momentum. Because once you got them going, I understand, once you got going good on that good momentum, let's keep them on it. Because and I always explain, you're going to have some stumps. You're going to have some bumps in the road. You're going to have some ups and downs, but we're going to get through it. And I have to show them how to get through it. I could tell them all day long, but I understood me. I'm a visual person. Show me how to get through this. So I walk with them through to get through it. And I said, now I could do it with you a couple of times, but I said, but you're going to have to learn how to do this on your own too, because I'm not always going to be around. I said, when it comes to that day and we got to stand in front of God, you can't bring me up there and say, well, Patrick helped me get through this. Patrick talked to God for me. But if you bring me up on your judgment day, talk to God for you, and I'm gonna make sure I'm okay with it so I can get in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta make sure I can get in first before I can
Yeah.
get you in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to be selfish or nothing about it, but that's what I'm living to get to heaven.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and what sense does that make? If I get you into heaven, I can't get myself into heaven.
Yeah.
So I tell them that you have to learn how to do this on your own. Also, I said, I'm not throwing you out and saying I'm not going to help you, but you have to understand there's going to be that time where you have to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet and depend on God. I said, this is what I do. I said, I'm not trying to tell everybody to do it like how I do it, but you have to find your own way of doing it. That's why I get so upset sometimes when they talk about this reentry and they have this check the box, oh, this is going to work for everybody. I said, it does not work for everybody. We're all different. I said, our skin color is different. The way we talk is different. The way our culture is different. The way we was raised is different. The way, because I said, think about this. If 4 of us all sit back and watch the same incident, we're all going to describe it a different way because we all see different parts of it.
That's right.
It's not saying that you're wrong. We just you may saw something I didn't see.
Yeah. Or just how we're wired. Yeah, how you're wired, how you're naturally, one of the speakers that I interviewed, it was David Wright, and he is the owner of the Dale Carnegie Institute in Texas. And he said, if there's one thing that just gets me, is to see a human with potential that they're not using. I just or the other thing that he shared, he said that, a lot of times people will be thinking, oh, life is so hard. I just got to go home and I got to get myself some adult liquid and then take myself a bath, and he's like, no, that is not the answer. When you begin to invest in other people's lives, that's where you come to life.
Yeah.
And so can you share some more about like that angle and not only that, but even your kids, what your kids got to, because I know for sure you have a grown daughter.
I have 2 grown daughters.
Okay. So 2 grown daughters.
Met one.
Okay. I know one of them, but I just didn't know if you had another child. So can you tell how what they've watched their dad walk through in choosing growth, right? You chose growth. You did. And choosing growth, it is not the easier pathway to choose growth.
I had to show them everything. I had to show them the vulnerable side, the angry side, the confident side, the nervous side, the scared side. I had to show them everything, and I had to be willing to answer their questions, honestly, because I've always been honest with my daughters. So I had to have that conversation with them, sit down and allow them to ask the questions that they needed to ask. And I would always tell them, so now, if we're going to sit down and have this conversation, you might hear some stuff that you're not going to like. I'm going to hear some stuff I'm not going to like, but we're going to work through it and then we're going to move forward with it. But I had to let them see all of that to understand like the fullness of who their dad really is. I just heard this term by Jason Wilson called the comprehensive man, where you allow every part of your body to be used, the hard side, the mental side, the soft side. Because they were just so used to seeing their dad always angry and hard. So that's all they knew. And I said, hold on, your dad is still loving. I love you. I care for you. And I have to show them that. And I have to, and I remember the first time I cried in front of my oldest daughter. And I remember her looking at me. She was like in awe, like, because she's never seen her dad cry. And it was like, oh, my dad does cry. That's the look like she gave me, like, oh, people told me that my dad, crying. I used to tell her that, but then when she saw me crying, like, oh, and I didn't hide it from her. Then after everything was said and done, I explained to her why I was crying. Yeah. And I allowed her to ask me those questions like why, this and that. and everything. And I explained to her, and I said, and I told her how good it felt for me to release it.
Yeah.
And I saw that how that strengthened our relationship, where she was able to, okay, now I could trust my dad with my feelings. I could trust my dad with my
Yeah.
heart, and he's not gonna crumble it and step all over it and tell me I'm no good. Because I understand that
Yeah.
that was the hurt that she was still carrying on, and she didn't know how to deal with it. And so I was like,
Mm.
I understood. I had to show her how.
Mm.
And so that was the biggest thing that was really an eye opener for me. And it was like, okay, can I do that for her? And I was like, yeah, I'm her dad. I'm supposed to do that for her. I'm supposed to show her this well-rounded man. Like, back in the day, how they used to say a Renaissance man, because you had so many traits that you know what to do.
Yeah.
But think about being a Renaissance man where you know how to be that strong man, but you know how to be that kind man. But you also know how to
Mm.
be, your mental health is good, and your spiritual is good. So I was like, I took as that as like, okay, let me work on all that, because this is who my daughter needs to see. So
Hmm.
when she goes out looking for a mate, she'll find somebody with these characteristics, instead of that characteristics of I have to be this angry, hardcore person all the time, because that's not who we are. And then God was showing me that I was selling myself short, how much I
Mm.
was not giving to the world what He gave me.
That's
Right. And that's when we
deep.
talk
That's
about that.
deep.
Yeah. And that's when we talk about that wisdom. What's good of you learning something if you don't share it? To me,
Yeah.
you'll be the stupidest person in the world if you learn all this and you don't know how to share with nobody. Then you learn nothing.
And with you
And so that's
choosing,
the whole thing.
yeah, and with you choosing to share, that's humility, right? That's literally
Yeah.
humility, right? But humility is not weakness. It's a strength. Putting yourself
Yeah.
in a humble space, that's actually strength, right? And so how would you say, in being real with your children, right? In conversing, and this is so good what you're sharing today. I was communicating with somebody that there has to be a space where adults, who have adult children, where how do we bring them up to a space where they're not, for the next 20 years of their life, I can't move forward because of my childhood, right? And as a parent, we don't want to carry, I don't want to be hearing for the next 30 years that I ruined somebody, right? So how do we bring them up to get rid of the stuff so that they can walk forth as whole adults? So
This
what
is
we,
what I had to do with my oldest daughter.
okay.
Right. And God put it on my heart. He said I had to apologize to her. And I told God I did. I did apologize to her. He goes, no, you didn't. You didn't apologize to that 7-year-old girl that you hurt when you went away.
Oh gosh.
So I had to apologize. I'm sorry about that. It's getting me. Whew.
Woo, let's wait a second,
I
because
had to
it.
apologize to.
We just need to wait a second, because
Yeah, I had to
it's getting
apologize to my
everybody.
7-year-old. And she was over, and she's 21. She's 22 years old when I did this. I told her one day we were going to go out, right? And I made it a point. So I went to go pick her up. I stood outside the car. I got on my knees, and I told her. I looked at her in the eyes, and I told her name. I'm not going to say her name, but I said I'm apologizing to that 7-year-old girl that I hurt when I went away, right? Then I said I'm apologizing to that 10-year-old girl that wanted her dad to take her to the park, or somebody was bullying her and I wasn't around. I said, I'm
Ooh.
apologizing to this 15-year-old girl that was in high school that got her first boyfriend and her heartbreak, and you wanted her dad to beat him up or something, dad to protect her. So I apologize to all that. It's just like different stages in our life. I felt like I had to apologize to her. I apologized to the 18-year-old girl that said, now I'm 18 and I think I'm grown, but my dad is not here to share this with me. I apologize to the girl that graduated from high school and I couldn't be there. So once I did that, our whole relationship changed. And it was like I watched her grow up right then and there in front of me,
Mm.
and that was something that I had to do because I understood the hurt. God showed me like, no, you really hurt your child. And
Mm.
it just and it wrecked me. I'm crying to her when I apologized to her for it, but it just like it wrecked me. But I understood like the real harm that I caused on her, and it was like, and I never meant to hurt her, but by
Mm.
me being selfish and choosing myself first, I did.
Mm.
And so once I did that, it was like she grew up, and
Mm.
and and, and I'm telling you, when I watched her, like literally in front of me, just like grow up, like and start to become like okay. And so after I did that, now I created a space where it was comfortable for her to start talking to me now, and I had
Mm.
to do that because I'm the one who caused all of it. And
And
so
you
yeah,
know
that's
what,
how we have to.
so you know what's so powerful about what you just did? Okay, let me tell you something. So I call it the night watch. Okay, like what takes place when you put your head on the pillow and before you wake up in the morning. I kid you not. In the night watch last night, right about 2 o'clock, the Lord flashed a scene before my mind, told me to apologize to a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And is what you did, right? I've heard it said, if you go back to that space, where was the Lord in that space? But I've never heard it said, have as a parent, the parent chooses to go
Mm-hmm.
back to that space. And so this is deep. This is deep, and we are out of time. But I know, I'm going to say I know, that I'm going to say, Brother Patrick, we're going to need you on like once every 30 days. Because
All right.
as you continue to walk forward, and you already have that steadfast mindset, oh, it's just beautiful. And I have to pull myself
Yeah.
together because I got another speaker after this, right? But as you continue to walk forth in the mindset of I choose to partner with wisdom, I can't even imagine what's going to unfold in your life. And I just want you to know the sister in me, the mom in me, I am so proud that you have chosen
Thank you.
to walk the harder path for the bigger purpose of helping others, but to reconcile the relationship with your daughters.
Yeah.
And so you have 30 more seconds. Now, actually, we're going to give you 60 seconds. Give 3 starting points to anybody who wants to start a new path.
First, understand that this path is not going to be easy. 2, allow yourself to enjoy the moment. And 3, sit in whatever you're going through, process it. If it's good or bad, if it's hurt, process it before you move on from it. Don't run from it.
That's good. So,
Those are the 3.
So attached to this YouTube will be contact information for Brother Patrick Alexander. And this is one of those episodes I could probably go on for another hour. But I just want to thank all of our viewers for coming today to Sagionic 1027. And until our next program, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon me. Blessings. Bye.